Welcome to this new automotive news video for Tuesday, June 9, 2026. Today we're going to talk about Stellantis, which is issuing a new recall. It's been a long time since this happened, but this time they've really gone all out, since more than 1 million vehicles are affected. We'll also talk about the new Alpine A390, which has just hit the roads and already has to go back to the workshop for a particularly bizarre recall. We'll talk about Opel, which is going to turn one of its compact models into an SUV, as if the market wasn't already saturated. And finally, we'll talk about Audi, which is bringing back its diesel engines. I hope you'll find these topics interesting. If you do, as usual, I'm counting on you to show it by leaving a like, subscribing for future videos, boosting this one, and of course, leaving a comment where you share your thoughts on today's news. As I mentioned, we'll start with some Stellantis news. They're issuing another major recall, and this time, more than 1.3 million vehicles are affected due to a pretty serious issue. A recall for a potential fire risk. What makes this situation especially worrying and serious is that the manufacturer is recommending that owners of the affected vehicles park them outside, away from buildings and other cars, while waiting for their vehicle to be serviced. The models involved in this recall are Jeep Wrangler and Jeep Gladiator, produced between 2021 and 2025. The problem is a defect in the wiring of the power steering. In some cases, the faulty cables could cause overheating, which in turn could ignite the materials surrounding these cables, mainly plastic, potentially leading to the entire vehicle catching fire. For Stellantis, the timing is far from perfect, since Antonio Filozza, who was recently appointed as the head of the group, has publicly and officially expressed several times his intention to put vehicle quality back at the top of the priority list. Unfortunately for him, the automotive industry is one where decisions made several years earlier continue to have effects long afterward. And it's probably still the consequences of the Tavares era that are being paid for now. Still, for the customer, and especially for potential customers of the Stellantis group brands, this recall is likely to fuel a sense of mistrust, because recalls due to fire risk have been quite numerous at the Stellantis group in recent months and recent years. Remember, just a few weeks ago in March, we were already talking about another massive recall of around 700,000 vehicles, also due to a fire risk. A gigantic operation that reminds us how much the quality of materials, and also the quality of assembly, remain a major challenge for car manufacturers today. Believe it or not, Stellantis isn't the only one issuing recalls. Within the Renault group, at the Alpine brand, they have to issue their first recall for the Alpine A390, which has barely just come out. It's barely arrived at dealerships or on the roads, and it already has to go back. Just a reminder, we're talking about a vehicle that costs around 65,000 euros for the base model. When you pay that kind of price for a new car, especially knowing that this car is already behind its rivals technologically, you have the right to expect production quality and especially assembly quality worthy of a true premium vehicle. But the recall here is about welds that simply aren't strong enough, which means that when you're driving, because of the wind resistance on the vehicle, part of the front bumper can simply come off. This does indeed pose a risk to road safety. Imagine you're behind an A390 that drops its bumper in the middle of the highway. There's a real risk of accidents and injuries. So that's French luxury for you, buying a car for 65,000 euros whose bumpers come off while driving. A recall that's coming at a rather complicated time for this A390. The launch has already been disrupted by the difficulties faced by Verkor, the French battery supplier initially chosen for the project, who ultimately was not selected by Renault. And a particularly complicated launch because due to the delayed start and launch of this A390, they simply find themselves completely left behind compared to their competitors in terms of range and charging speed. Even though, obviously, this bumper issue has no connection to the batteries, it adds an extra difficulty to a launch that was supposed to showcase Alpine's premium expertise. And when a manufacturer is trying to compete with the German benchmarks in the segment, this kind of incident is probably the last thing they need. But quality issues aren't the only challenges manufacturers face, because while some are trying to fix their mistakes, others continue to rely on the same formula. The SUV, a formula that's starting to saturate the market. And yet that's the choice Stellantis made for its Opel brand and for its future Astra model, which used to be a compact car, sure, a sedan, but still a compact. Except that sales of compact cars keep declining. To be honest, since manufacturers no longer offer compact cars in their lineup, it's obviously hard to sell them. Indeed, sales of compact sedans keep declining, while SUVs continue to attract more and more customers. even though we've reached a point where the market is so saturated that some brands in the Stellantis group, like Peugeot, for example, believe that in a few years, the SUV trend will come to an end. In the meantime, the next Astra will be a crossover SUV, which has just been confirmed. It will be based on the Estelle 1 platform, allowing the electric versions to benefit from an 800-volt architecture and therefore shorter battery charging times. But that's not surprising here, since we're talking about a car that's going to be released in 2030 by then. German brands like BMW or Mercedes will have already been using 800-volt systems for 5 years. So there will be a fully electric version which will be equipped with LFP batteries, but there will also be a hybrid version, at least one. The brand's director explained that for the Astra, Opel simply chose to cast a wide net, hence the choice of the SUV, but also the choice of these powertrains, which still won't be exclusively fully electric. It has already been confirmed that an extended version of this future Astra will be released, the Grand Tourer version, which is a vehicle style that is still very popular in the German market and still sells reasonably well. So let me know in the comments what you think about it. And do you think it's a good idea to turn the Astra into an SUV? Does the market really need another SUV to offer its customers? Isn't Opel making a mistake here by not choosing to differentiate itself from the competition? By continuing to offer sedans or compacts? In any case, it's not the only brand to announce this kind of decision. I'll add a little news item for you as well, because it's still related. Since over at Ford, after removing the Focus from the lineup, they now want to relaunch it as a C-segment SUV crossover. Basically, well, a medium-sized SUV. A repositioning that would mean the main competitors of the Focus would no longer be the Volkswagen Golf or the Renault Megane, but rather the Volkswagen T-Roc or even the Nissan Qashqai. Here too, for the return of the Focus, they would be working on a fully electric version, but also on versions with combustion engines, traditional hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and even hybrids with a range extender. You can like SUVs, of course. You're allowed to like them. But the problem with SUVs is that in general, manufacturers use them a lot to move up market. It's easier to justify high prices on a big vehicle that looks wider and more upscale than on a smaller, more affordable car. So we might see a whole bunch of model names coming back into manufacturers' lineups over the next few years, but as SUVs at prices much higher than those of the previous generations. Speaking of SUVs, Audi is announcing the new generation of its Q7 and, more importantly, is bringing back diesel engines. For several years now, the automotive industry has been repeating that diesel is a thing of the past. Due to environmental rules, the Euro 7 standard electrification and soaring diesel prices, most believed this technology was outdated. Yet Audi has just made a rather surprising decision, because on its new Q7, not only will Audi offer a diesel engine, but it will be the only engine available. At least at its launch. Later this will change with the arrival of other versions and other engines in the lineup. But indeed, and it may sound pretty crazy, in 2026, the launch version of the new Q7, priced from €99,000, will be equipped with a 3-liter V6 diesel engine that produces 300 horsepower and about 600 newton-meters of torque. It won't be a pure combustion engine. It will be hybridized with a mild hybrid system capable of providing an additional 24 horsepower when needed. The engine will feature not only turbos, but also an electric compressor to improve low-end performance. This also confirms that Audi has indeed made sure to have its new diesel engine certified according to Euro 7 standards. In other words, we're not done seeing diesel engines at Audi, and maybe also at other brands in the Volkswagen Group, maybe even at Porsche. The whole setup is connected to an 8-speed Tiptronic automatic transmission and to the Quattro all-wheel drive system. Other versions with different engines will arrive later. Starting from the first quarter of 2027, there will be 2 plug-in hybrid versions joining the lineup, with 395 and 490 horsepower respectively. I believe we're talking about a V6 and a V8 here. Audi even claims up to 80 kilometers of range in fully electric mode for these future versions. Still, in the meantime, the message sent by Audi is quite clear. Diesel remains present and is not ready to disappear. That's not the only standout feature of this new generation. Audi will also introduce a new 2-level lighting signature and several customizable front and rear animations. Well, that's just a gimmick, and it's especially very expensive to repair without necessarily adding much driving pleasure. The brand has even innovated with a new system capable of projecting the turn signals directly onto the ground. Inside, the Q7 adopts the design found in the latest generations of the Audi A6, with a large screen that combines the instrument cluster and the multimedia system, as well as a third screen on the side that's really dedicated to the front passengers. It will be available in a 5-seat configuration, but 6- and 7-seat configurations will be available later as options. Orders are already open, and the first deliveries are expected as early as October. But beyond the vehicle itself, it's really the positioning that raises questions. While the entire industry seemed to be moving toward all-electric, Audi chose to relaunch its new family flagship with a diesel engine, a decision that raises questions. Did manufacturers try to bury diesel too quickly? Let me know what you think in the comments. Is Audi right to keep this engine, or does diesel definitely belong to the past? In any case, that's it for today's news. I hope you found the video interesting. If that's the case, I'm counting on you to show it by leaving a like, subscribing for future videos, and maybe even supporting the channel by clicking the join button below. See you tomorrow for the next video. Thank you, ciao.